cho mình một cánh tay nào. Uốn lì của mọi người như thế nào? Giang có đi chơi không Giang? Rồi ok. Ok. Mình chơi tầm khoảng 1 phút nữa. Và tầm khoảng 8:30 ha. Mình sẽ có workshop liên quan tới pop ha. Phần này không biết là mọi người có câu hỏi gì không nhỉ? Liên quan tới cái phần liên quan tới Solidity Development trên Moonbeam. Chắc là mình hỏi Giang đi. Giang ơi, ông có xem session mới nhất chưa? Liên quan tới Solidity Development on Moonbeam. Ông đã xem chưa? Mọi người tương tác cho mình nhé. Rồi ok. Chắc là mình nói lại sơ qua xí ha. Bởi vì cái này cũng đăng like, thì nếu những bạn chưa xem liên quan tới video ấy thì mình nói sơ qua một xí. Cái phần này ấy sẽ là bằng tường, sẽ chịu trách nhiệm chính liên quan tới phần Solidity Development. Mọi người đọc qua phần documentation thì mình nghĩ là mọi người cũng có thể hiểu được cách deploy trên mạng Moonbeam, testnet và cách setup MetaMask này, rồi sau đó setup Foundry development tool để mà mình có thể deploy được smart contract bằng cái tool đó. Rồi sau đó là mình sẽ có một cái phần liên quan tới xây dựng frontend cho smart contract trên Moonbeam. Cơ bản thì nó sẽ tương tự hoàn toàn như là ở trên Moonbeam luôn, ở trên Ethereum luôn. Ok, cái phần liên quan tới Moonbase Alpha này á, thì mình có hướng dẫn ấy, là mình sẽ setup cái network Moonbase Alpha trên ID và cái RPC và cái block explorers. Và để mà mình thực hiện được cái transaction trên một cái network nào đó ấy, thì mình phải cần một cái gọi là cái native tokens, native coin để mình có thể thực hiện được cái transactions. Rồi là cái phần liên quan tới setup Moonbase Alpha thì mình cũng đã setup ở đây xong rồi nhá. Ở đây. Rồi sau đó là mình có thể sử dụng remix để mình có thể tương tác với remix IDE. Ở đây là cái phần liên quan tới tích hợp event, mình đã có một cái phần cũng khá là cơ bản rồi, nói chung là một cái contract đơn giản. Trong cái phần video bạn Tường cũng có giải thích cho mọi người ấy, là một cái ứng dụng là crowdfunding. Cái ứng dụng này ấy là sẽ như là quyên góp ấy, tài trợ. Và trong cái video thì bạn Tường cũng có giải thích step by step cách tạo ra một cái contract crowdfunding như thế nào, ý nghĩa của nó như thế nào. Thì mọi người có thể xem lại documentation và cái đoạn nào mọi người bây giờ có thể thử xem qua, và mọi người thấy cái đoạn nào không hiểu không? Sorry, mình chưa xem màn hình. Ok, thank you. Application screen. Ok. Tại trong cái phần crowdfunding solidity thì trong cái video là bằng Tường cũng đã giải thích rất là rõ đấy. Là thứ nhất là cách định nghĩa lỗi này, cái thứ hai là định nghĩa constant này, hoặc là định nghĩa on-chain storage này, cái phần liên quan tới mapping này, hoặc là định nghĩa liên quan tới event này. Và nó sẽ có hai cái hàm rất là đặc biệt, hàm receive và hàm fallback. Tiếp theo là nó sẽ có một cái constructor là liên quan tới phần hàm khởi tạo này, hoặc modifier là nó sẽ hỗ trợ cho việc là mình check cái logic này. Và nó sẽ có những cái hàm gọi là tương tác trực tiếp với blockchain thông qua cái smart contract. Ở đây là hàm phân và hàm withdraw. Cái hàm phân này là mình sẽ kiểu như là mình sẽ deposit một cái lượng tiền nào đó, lượng donation nào đó vào trong cái smart contract. Và withdraw này là chỉ có owner của cái crowdfunding này mình có thể rút tiền ra được. Thì mọi người đọc sơ qua thì mọi người thấy có cái câu hỏi nào không? Thực sự thì đấy là cái phần chịu trách nhiệm chính của bạn Tường, thì mình và bạn Tường sẽ support cho mọi người. Lo nhỏ quá. Ok, mình maximum rồi ha. Chắc là solidity dễ nha mọi người. Dễ không nhỉ? Mình không rõ, mình bật maximum rồi đấy. Giờ cậu nghe thấy không? Mic hơi nhỏ. Ok, mình không rõ là mình bây giờ nghe rồi chứ? Rồi mình tiếp tục nhé. Mình tiếp tục, mọi người có nghe mình không? Mình tiếp tục nhé. Mọi người bấm số 1 để mình tiếp tục này. Ok, rồi đó là cái phần liên quan tới crowdfunding solidity. Tiếp theo là phần phát triển smart contract solidity với Foundry ấy. Hiện tại bây giờ là đối với solidity nó sẽ có hai cái development tool khá là phổ biến là 𝐏𝐻 hoặc là Foundry. Cái hai development tool này nó sẽ hỗ trợ cho việc tương tác, deploy, test smart contract. Và cái phần 𝐻 này thì rất là nhiều rồi, có nghĩa là rất nhiều tutorials ở trên internet. Thì trong phần giới thiệu trong cái phần session này á, thì bạn Tường có giới thiệu thêm một cái phần liên quan tới Foundry. Không biết là mọi người hay sử dụng Foundry hay là sử dụng HH nhỉ? Tương có thể giải thích cái ưu nhược điểm của Foundry được không so với HH? Và tại vì sao em lại sử dụng Foundry nhiều hơn so với HH?
Nếu mà em làm thế thì Auri HH á, thực ra thì nó là để cái nào mạnh hơn á, thì cũng khó mà so sánh lắm. Nhưng mà nếu mà những ai mà người mới á, là lần đầu tiên tiếp cận với lại smart contract, và họ có thể là người mới là lần đầu tiên tiếp cận với lại Utility luôn hay là code luôn á, mà đã bước chân vào code smart contract rồi á, thì người ta sẽ phải học thêm cái TypeScript nữa, hoặc là JavaScript để có thể sử dụng được HH. Họ phải biết cả TypeScript và biết hai ngôn ngữ á, thì mới sử dụng được HH ha. Còn đối với lại Foundry á, thì chúng ta có thể viết một cái script, chúng ta có thể viết test, hoặc là chúng ta code luôn smart contract bằng một cái ngôn ngữ duy nhất là Solidity thôi, thì nó sẽ tiện hơn. Còn đối với chuyện mà compiler mà để khi mà em code nha, nếu mà chuyện compile để code nó cái nào nó nhanh hơn á, thì em nghĩ là cái thằng Foundry nó sẽ nhanh hơn, tại vì nó viết bằng Rust, nó compile rất nhanh ha. Nhưng mà nếu mà để chọn giữa hai cái ha, thì nếu mà các bạn đã quyết định là các bạn học làm một người smart contract engineer á, thì chúng ta nên biết cả hai cái. Ví dụ như cái thằng J.K. đi, layer 2 đi, thì lúc mà chúng ta muốn là những người đầu tiên build của dự án ở trong cái J.K. đó, thì nó không có hỗ trợ Foundry, thì chúng ta có thể testing được, nó chỉ có hỗ trợ khác thôi. Đó. Thành ra là nếu mà chúng ta muốn trở thành một người smart contract developer á, thì cả hai cái này chúng ta đều phải biết hết. Nhưng mà đối với những ai mà không biết JavaScript á, thì Foundry nó vẫn ok hơn, là chúng ta chỉ cần học một ngôn ngữ duy nhất thôi là ok rồi.
Ok, ok. Mọi người có ý kiến gì nào? Mình thì thường hay sử dụng HH, và việc test thì mình hay sử dụng JavaScript hoặc TypeScript. Hoặc là nếu
Ờ,
mà
nếu
mình
mà
nghĩ
anh có nếu mà anh có clone những cái contract rất là lớn của những cái tụi lớn, ví dụ như thằng Uniswap á, thì nếu mà anh lấy cái Uniswap V4 á, nếu mà anh combine á, là nó sẽ cái thời gian nó sẽ lâu hơn so với việc combine ở trên Foundry nha. Nó sẽ nhanh hơn so với việc là anh combine ở trên HH. Đó là lý do mà bây giờ hầu hết là sẽ mua qua sử dụng Foundry, tại vì nó combine nhanh hơn, local development nó nhanh hơn.
vậy thì giả sử đối với Foundry và HH thì Foundry nó có hỗ trợ nhiều cái chức năng hơn so với HH không?
Ờ, nếu mà để so sánh chức năng nha, em nghĩ là HH nó sẽ nhiều hơn, tại vì là thằng HH á, nó có một cái nó có JavaScript, mà JavaScript thì anh biết rồi, là JavaScript cái gì nó cũng làm được hết. Còn bên phía thằng Auri á, thì nó có bốn cái công cụ chủ yếu, nhưng mà một cái nó có là uh, Bot, nó có Chisel, nó có Cast, và nó có Anvil Local Chain. Đối với nó có hết tất cả các công cụ để chúng ta có thể làm việc được với Smart Contract Utility rồi. Ví dụ như trên HH thì HH đâu cho chúng ta run một cái local chain bằng thư viện HH đâu, mà nó đưa chúng ta một cái phổ biến là Ganache. Thì sử dụng Ganache á, thì thường thường là chúng ta sẽ phải chạy một cái local, là chúng ta phải tải thêm một cái phần mềm là Ganache để chúng ta chạy local chain dưới máy, sau đó thì chúng ta mới sử dụng chúng ta sử dụng cái HH á, chúng ta config. Còn bây giờ á, nếu mà chúng ta đã sử dụng thằng Foundry rồi, nó sẽ cho chúng ta luôn cái Anvil chain, tức là một cái
À,
rất là đơn giản, chỉ cần bật cái terminal lên, ấn chữ Anvil phát là ra một cái local chain chạy dưới máy luôn, có thể thoải mái mà test. Đó.
ok,
Còn
ok.
HH thì chúng ta cài đặt thêm ha.
Ok, hiểu, 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 hiểu cái này rồi. Cũng có em biết HH nốt. Ok, cảm ơn Mộng Tường. Ờm, rồi, ok, mọi người có thể
Nói
sẽ
chung là cả hai cái đều cần đó bạn.
build trên rất tốc độ build nhanh. Đúng rồi. Ủa, cho anh hỏi xí là cái vụ giả sử verify contract kia là bên Foundry cũng tương tự giống như bên hát đúng không?
Verify contract á, để em share cái màn hình
Ừ, ok ok.
cho nó xíu nha.
Cái này mình nghĩ là cũng là quan trọng ấy. Khi mà giả sử mình lên production rồi sau đó mình verify contract trên scan.
Em thấy màn hình chưa ạ?
Rồi ok mình thấy rồi.
Ví dụ như verify contract ở trên Foundry đi. À, thì ví dụ như ta không biết verify sao hết, chỉ cần là ghi là post trừ v nó sẽ ra chữ hết rồi ha. Verify contract, xong rồi nó verify chữ hết thì chúng ta tìm kiếm thì nó sẽ có hết tất cả các công cụ đó.
Ờ,
Với lại cái việc ở trong cái document của là chỉ cần nhập cái tại vì là nếu mà cái address chúng ta deploy bằng array á, thì cái sự cố của chúng ta đừng có thay đổi gì hết, thì tất
ừ,
nhiên là nó sẽ có cái address của contract chúng ta deploy rồi, nó chưa
ừ,
verify, và chúng ta sẽ pass cái đường dẫn của contract đó. Ví dụ như ở đây mình đang làm cái contract cho cái phần mới nhất của khóa Solidity với Fairy á, thì chỉ cần là copy cái path này lại, copy the path này.
ờ,
Khi mà copy cái path này xong á, thì chỉ cần là ví dụ như mình ở đây nha, clean á, post verify contract, xong rồi pass đường dẫn của contract ra. Thế ở
ok.
đây mình kiếm một cái contract đại ở đó này, cái đại của địa chỉ address ha.
Ủa vậy cho anh hỏi bên Foundry là không có
Đây
cái
đây.
kiểu dạng cái file config không? Giả sử bên HH ấy là nó sẽ có
Ừ,
file config
ừ,
ấy.
ừ. Nếu mà anh muốn có thì nó vẫn có hết. Ví dụ như
Ok,
anh còn ba contract rồi nó có.
ok, ok, ok.
Ờ, đó verify contract xong rồi anh bắt đường dẫn ra cộng thêm cái API key của cái interscan hay là cái scan của cái moonbeam chẳng hạn,
Ừ, đúng
thì
rồi.
nó sẽ verify rất là nhanh ha.
Ừ,
Còn ví dụ như mà mình muốn verify trong lúc mà mình deploy contract luôn á, thì chỉ cần viết cho nó một cái script thôi, để em mở một
ừ,
contract ví dụ ha.
đúng rồi, ok.
Nếu đây mình chỉ cần Favi bữa hôm bữa làm cái gì rồi. Dạ, không phải cái này, để mình xíu nha. Để một luôn nha.
Ủa, cái này là verify opt-in đấy. Cơ bản cái verify
Khi mà mình
này
đưa lên trên testnet thì
ừ,
mới cần verify chứ anh. Đây mọi người có thấy không ạ?
ok ok mình có thấy.
Mình
Ok
có để sẵn một cái
issue
file ha.
code.
Ví dụ như chúng ta deploy á, là chúng ta sẽ deploy qua một cái script, và nếu á, mà chúng ta cho thêm nó một cái argument là nếu thuộc Cebulia thì chúng ta sẽ deploy lên Cebulia với những cái env file mà chúng ta lưu dưới máy, những cái biến env environment đó sẵn ở dưới máy của chúng ta á, thì chúng ta có thể cho account này broadcast verify, và chúng ta pass cái Etherscan API key vô là sẽ verify được contract. Trong trường hợp của thằng Moonbeam này á, thì nó sẽ là Moonbeam Moonscan login vô ha. Về cái việc mà chúng ta development ở trên Moonbeam hay là chúng ta development ở trên Ethereum á, thì nó giống hệt nhau, không khác gì hết. Tôi nghĩ là cái VM nó cũng đem qua luôn á, nó không có giống như thằng Zcasin thì nó sẽ khó hơn ha. Còn cái thằng này thì giống hệt. Ở đây nó sẽ có cái API key này, cái copy API key này, đó tôi bỏ vào trong cái biến cục bộ của chúng ta, là khi mà chúng ta deploy contract sẽ verify luôn. Nhưng mà mình không biết sao nha, là ở trên Moonbase Alpha á, thì chúng ta làm cái này không được. Đó, còn nếu mà các bạn vẫn muốn verify contract á, thì có thể làm cái việc đó, còn mình vẫn là mình làm theo cách này ha. Đó, khi mà mình tạo một file như thế này nha, xong rồi có những cái sẵn những cái đoạn script mình ghi sẵn như này rồi á, thì rất là nhanh. Ví dụ như cái đoạn develop, bạn đang develop mà cái contract á các bạn deploy rồi nó có vấn đề gì đó, chúng ta chỉ cần ghi là mất. Đó, xong rồi deploy ATRS, xong rồi là network Sepolia. Đó, chỉ cần là như vậy thôi, chỉ cần ghi đúng cái lệnh như thế này thôi là nó sẽ giúp chúng ta cái việc là nó sẽ chạy hết cái đoạn script này mà chúng ta không phải nhớ đi nhớ lại, chúng ta phải ấn rất là nhiều thứ ra. Và nó cũng có một cái account ở đây này, tức là khi mà chúng ta sử dụng với lại thằng enview á, hay là chúng ta sử dụng về phần người ta contract là chúng ta phải nhập một cái private key nữa để deploy. Đó, chúng ta phải có một cái private key như thế này, và chúng ta khi mà chúng ta biết pass một cái dãy private key ra á, hay là một cái passphrase hay là private key tùy trên thì cái việc đó nó sẽ khiến cho cái ứng dụng của chúng ta nó không có an toàn, tại vì cái file key mà chúng ta ghi inline lên trên cái history á thì nó sẽ gắn lên trên cái history luôn của cái terminal ha. Còn ở trong enview trên thì nó cung cấp cho chúng ta một cái công cụ là account, hay là Foundry á, nó cung cấp cho chúng ta một cái công cụ là account. Ví dụ nha, ở đây mình sử dụng là kia là cast wallet list. Đó, thì ở đây mình có tất cả những cái account mà mình lưu trong máy, và file key sẽ lưu ở trong cái công cụ cast wallet này. Khi mà chúng ta deploy contract không bao giờ chúng ta bị lộ cái private key, chúng ta chỉ cần ghi lại một cái mật khẩu cho nó, sau đó là chúng ta khi mà deploy á, chúng ta muốn lấy cái private key ra chúng ta thêm cái account thôi. Đó. Còn cái thứ hai để chúng ta bảo mật á thì nó sẽ là thêm một cái flag là interactive. Đó, khi mà chúng ta chạy hết một cái lệnh, ví dụ như là deploy contract ở trên Foundry á, thì ghi một cái lệnh là force grade, xong rồi chúng ta sẽ bắt cái đường dẫn của contract vô này, lottery này, copy này. Đó, mình sẽ deploy thử contract này ha, mình chạy ở trên sẵn nha, trên enview. Xóa cái terminal này lại, bật một terminal mới lên thì là enview. Rồi chạy cái trên này dưới máy, xong rồi mình qua đây factory, mình không nhập gì hết nha, mình ghi là interactive enter. Nó sẽ hỏi cái contract lottery đó là cái gì nè, có cái path tới rồi, là chúng ta khai báo thêm cái tên của contract. Đó, nó enter private key. Private key này thì ở trong này nó sẽ có account, nó cho thẳng chúng ta account này, thì cái private key với cái số này sẽ tương ứng với account trên này ha, thì copy cái private key này, up vào đây, enter. Đó, nó thiếu cái argument. Nói chung là mình bị lỗi gì trong này rồi, nhưng mà nói chung là chạy cái lệnh đó.
Rồi, ok.
Nói chung là chạy cái lệnh đó ha. Thì với cái việc đó, khi mà chúng ta ấn history á, history đó nó sẽ lưu lại, nếu mà chúng ta để giữ file key nó sẽ lưu file key ngay cái history này. Và nếu mà máy máy của ta có bị dính malware hay cái gì nó lấy được file key thì nguy hiểm lắm ha. Đây là, còn chúng ta không muốn lúc nào phải bắt file key thì nó có là cast wallet. Giống hồi nãy mình nói với các bạn á, thì các bạn muốn hiểu hết cái lệnh đó thì hết, còn muốn biết thêm nhiều cái cơ bản hơn á, thì cứ vô phần 1 của Solidity with Foundry ha.
Rồi, ok. Rồi, ok, cảm ơn bạn Tương ha. Mình sẽ đi phần tiếp theo.
Dạ.
Tính ra thì ý là nó sẽ Foundry nó sẽ vẫn hỗ trợ nhiều tính năng và nó xếp nhiều hơn ha. Mình thấy
Chung là bên HH có gì thì Foundry cũng cố gắng có cái đó.
Rồi, ok. Mình sẽ tiếp tục phần tiếp theo là liên quan tới frontend. Phần tích hợp frontend này thì trong cái phần video này thì Tường cũng đã giải thích rất là kỹ rồi, cách tích hợp như thế nào rồi. Thì mình sẽ chạy thử cái phần liên quan tới crowdfunding nhá. Mình sẽ connect wallet. Ở đây thì mọi người thấy
Còn
là
front end á, em chưa thấy cái màn hình của anh á.
sorry. Ok. Liên quan tới frontend á thì mình sẽ đây bằng Tường đang để Sepolia ha. Ok, nó chắc là nó cũng
Cái
sẽ
này em
để.
cũng nói, cái này em cũng nói luôn ở trong đó của mình là em để trong Spolia. Còn nếu mà muốn build ở trên cái Moonbeam Phát Triển thì chỉ cần phải coi clip, phải coi cái phần đầu tiên của em.
Rồi, ok, không sao.
Dạ.
Thì hiện tại tài khoản này mình không có, mình có Sepolia. Rồi mình thử donate ha. khi mà donate thì sẽ con smart contract. Ủa, cho anh hỏi này, cái event này ấy, là mình sẽ store kiểu như thế nào?
Sao anh?
Ok, mình donate xong rồi ha.
Ủa sao cái này của bên em chạy nó lại khác của anh?
Ờ,
Ờ
anh
ok,
chỉ vào cái link
giống
của
rồi
em
giống rồi.
này. Rồi, ok. Mọi người có thể xem kỹ hơn liên quan tới phần code nhé, và liên quan tới cái phần
À, một cái ví dụ như anh em nào còn không có, ví dụ chuẩn bị sắp tới nó sẽ có một cái hackathon ha. Nhưng mà anh em không có biết về Solidity smart contract á, thì chúng ta cần tìm mấy cái có sẵn ở trên Moonbeam rồi. Ví dụ như là mấy cái contract ở trên Moonbeam á, thì chúng ta sẽ lấy mấy cái contract đó, chúng ta xây dựng một cái brand ở trên cho cái contract đó, xong rồi đi thi hackathon là được rồi.
ok. Rồi, cảm ơn bạn Tương. Chris ơi, chắc là mình sẽ chuyển qua cái phần liên quan tới workshop nhỉ? Vì mình nghĩ là bên mình có hẹn liên quan tới tầm 8:30 ha. Ơi, mình không hiểu, ý là mình không hiểu lần trước vẫn ok ấy. Để mình check lại cái máy nhé. Chris ơi, Chris ơi. Ờ,
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? We can use the chat in the upper right corner of this server. Awesome, awesome. Let's just wait a bit, maybe of 2 more minutes until we start, and then yeah, Bruno is here also. But let's wait for 2 minutes, and then we can officially start. Thank you so much for being here on time. We'll start in a few. For now, can you test your mic, Bruno? Maybe you can test it. All right. And we're back. Bruno, are you here?
Yes, can you hear me?
Ah, perfect. Perfect. So I guess we can start anytime. Are you ready?
Yeah, so do a mic check, 1, 2, 3.
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So ready to get started.
Yeah, yeah. To start, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our workshop. Uh, we have a bunch of people here. So for this workshop. This is gonna be about enhancing Polkadot developer experience with POP. That's why we have Bruno here. I will let Bruno introduce himself, and also Tin, the co-founder, the contributor of Open Guild also. Um, yeah, so just to take some time and just a minute, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Patricia. I'm part of Open Guild, and I'm thrilled to welcome everyone. But before we dive in and officially start with Dean, so a few quick housekeeping notes. Just drop if you have questions, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We will try to answer with Q&A, maybe if we still have time. And yeah, so please take some notes, and if you find this workshop very helpful, feel free to also promote on X. And yeah, I guess that's it. We're very excited to have everyone here, and I hope you'll find this session very insightful and engaging. So yeah, I guess Tin, you want to take over? Tin? Okay. So I guess we will jump to Bruno already. Bruno, do you want to start?
Yes. Okay. So let me know if my screen disappears because this is the first time I'm using Discord to present. So hopefully it goes well. Um, so
Yes,
welcome
it's
everyone.
perfectly.
All right. Cool. So welcome. This presentation, as Pat said, it's about building on Polkadot, right? Building on Polkadot, specifically using POP, the POP products. My name is Bruno. I'm a co-founder at Rogue, company behind POP. And the agenda today is we're going to discuss what is POP. When we say POP, like you see it on Twitter, pop this, pop that, right? What is it? And then we're going to take a little bit of like a definition of like POP CLI. What is it? What can it do? POP network, same thing. And how do you get started? So if you like what POP is, like how do I start as a developer? How would I go about this? And then finally, I'm gonna show you a little demo. Okay. So when we say POP, it's actually a platform. It's a platform that consists of a family of products that helps developers build Web3 solutions on Polkadot. Specifically, the POP platform consists right now, currently, of the website on pop.io. You can take a look at that. Our documentation, which we're constantly improving, and then POP CLI tool. And additionally, POP network, which we'll discuss. So the CLI tool, you can think of it as it's a simple way to kind of like build an app chain, a Polkadot app chain, right? Or what we call a parachain. So you can use the CLI to build a parachain. You can use the CLI to spin up a network, a Polkadot network with the parachain that you're building. You can do that all the CLI. And if you're a smart contract developer and you're building smart contracts for Polkadot, CLI also helps you with that. You can build smart contracts. You can test a smart contract. You can deploy the smart contract. You can interact and call the smart contract messages. And you can also, there's like little things within the CLI. Like, for example, whenever I want to test a contract and I'm ready to deploy it, I deploy it and it spins up a node in the background automatically, right? So little features that make smart contract development more pleasant. And when we think about like the CLI tool in terms of parachains and smart contracts, it's hard to get started, especially if you're a newcomer. And so one of the features that the POP CLI has is it gives you templates. So if you want, you can start with a minimal template for smart contracts or for parachains, or there's a list of different templates that you can pick from. For example, for parachains, there's like an EVM one. I believe there's an NFT one. And then for smart contracts, there's a list of them. I'll see if I can show you at the end in the demo. So what's POP Network? POP Network is the answer to how do I deploy a smart contract on Polkadot. So I used to work at Parity a while back, and I worked more on the team that was external facing. It was facing like people who wanted to build on Polkadot, and we would get a lot of teams that were like, hey, we built a solution on Ethereum and we really like Polkadot and we want to like kind of like build the same thing but on Polkadot. How do we do that? And our answer at the time was like, well, if you want to build on Polkadot, you gotta kind of like, you gotta build a parachain, you gotta build a blockchain. And they're like, well, that's too much. We just want to deploy a simple contract, you know, and keep a product going, right? And we're like, well, right now we don't have any parachain where you can deploy a smart contract using DOT, right? So then finally, like nowadays, like there's initiatives happening. One is POP Network, the other one's Plaza, right? Polkadot's kind of getting that we need that. We need a way for developers to deploy contracts to Polkadot, right? And POP Network is one way. POP Network uses DOT, so you don't have to exchange for some weird token, right? You can interact with POP Network using DOT and deploy using DOT. POP Network uses 𝐿, the 𝐿 programming language, which I think is amazing. So enter 𝐿. 𝐿 is Rust. 𝐿 is actually a Rust programming language for smart contracts. 𝐿 is Rust with some macro magic, right? So you can think of like, for example, if you're going to write smart contracts, 𝐿 has these macros where you can define storage, you can define errors, you can define events, you can define messages that you want to call. So it makes smart contract development pleasant. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to build all these APIs. If you want to call an account ID, if you want to call blockchain types, it's already built into the language, right? So 𝐿 has all of that, plus 𝐿 adheres to the Polkadot APIs. So 𝐿 compiles down a WebAssembly and it runs on Pallet contracts. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, additionally, when you're writing in 𝐿, you're writing in Rust, right? So just keep in mind that the whole entire Polkadot SDK, one of the largest open source projects out there, is built with Rust. So that's a huge investment from my perspective and from my personal development experience. When I'm writing in Rust to create smart contracts, and sometimes I have to debug like Polkadot SDK stuff when I'm working with 𝐿, right? So like I get some error and it's coming from the module, from Pallet contracts. And because I'm already working in Rust, I don't have to switch the context in terms of languages, right? So it's all Rust. I think that's a very good pro in terms of like the whole tech stack. So I kind of hinted at this. 𝐿 is native to Polkadot. What does that mean? Well, when Parity built 𝐿, right? They built the entire 𝐿 programming language, and they built it from the perspective of like, hey, if we're going to build a smart contract programming language for Polkadot, what would that look like? And also, you know, 𝐏𝐿𝐏 being co-founder of Ethereum and CTO and built Solidity, he created Solidity, right? So enter Parity and Polkadot, like, okay, what do we learn from Solidity? What do we want to prove, right? And hence 𝐿, right? So 𝐿 is at a very mature level at this point. It's a version 5. And Parity built a palette called Pallet Contracts that runs 𝐿, right? It runs anything it runs WASM, right? So 𝐿 compiles down to native or WASM. When you deploy to production, you want it to be WASM because the WASM is going to run on Pallet contracts. It adheres to the Pallet contracts API. Okay. So this is something that my colleague showed me the other day, and I thought it was pretty amazing. Like, he's like, what's the difference between, like, tell me which one is like on a parachain and which one is on a smart contract, an Inc. smart contract, right? What's the difference there? Like, and it's identical. So when we say Inc. is native to Polkadot, like, this is an XCM message that you can craft in a parachain, right? A blockchain, or in an Inc. smart contract. So you don't have to like switch context, nothing. It's like, it's very close, right? Very close to the like when you're writing solutions with smart contracts, the learning curve, like if you want to have a team that's building smart contracts on Inc., I think that's the way to go. And if your smart contracts one day, like you want to go further into the tech, your team is already prepped that then you could go towards like building a parachain if you'd like. I think that's a great, how do you say, like an on-ramp, technical on-ramp. So actually that brings me to this slide. So take a moment and look at that. Building a parachain is hard. So on the left, you have development time. And on the bottom, you have difficulty. Writing Inc. smart contracts is easy. You can do it in a few minutes, right? I mean, obviously, you know, there's more complexity when you want to create a business logic on there. It takes more time, but it's easy. The hard part is figuring out your business logic. Whereas building a parachain with Frame is inside the Polkadot SDK repo. There's Substrate framework, right? Inside the Substrate framework, there's Frame. So Frame is kind of like Legos for logic, business logic, right? Consists of a number of pallets, and you don't have to rewrite code for balances. You don't have to rewrite code for staking or code for NFTs, code for fungibles, assets, right? It's already written for you. All you got to do is add that palette into your parachain, into your blockchain, and it's there, right? So it's a nice framework, and you can see the learning curve is a bit more there. It's a bit more advanced. And then building a parachain without Frame, you don't see this too often, but if you don't want to use Frame as the framework there for palettes, you want to write a different like implementation, like you want to write it in Go programming language, you could do that, because at the end of the day, the Substrate client or the Substrate node, it runs the WebAssembly runtime, right? So anything that compiles down a WebAssembly and adheres to the APIs, it'll run the host functions. It'll run. So technically you could do that. That's a lot more advanced. It takes a lot more time. You got to develop that. And then probably the more advanced one is if you want to like customize the node, right? Customize the client, the blockchain client, the parachain client. So why would you do that? Well, maybe you have a custom consensus that you're building into your blockchain, and so that you need to customize the node. Parity has spent years developing the node, right? And they wanted, the perspective is that the node is something stable, right? That it shouldn't change too often. Whereas the runtime, it'll change. It'll change. That's fine. It'll iterate. It'll improve, right? Whereas the node, it's just kind of like that thing that just sits there and it does its job very well, right? There's less documentation when it comes to like working with the node in the Polkadot SDK docs. It's a lot more advanced. That's why it's up there, right? So building a parachain is hard. Running a parachain is costly. So if you want to run a parachain, you know, you gotta think about core time. You're gonna have to pay for core time, so that you can get the block space, right? So your parachain can get finalized. The blocks can get finalized. You got to run collators to make sure your parachain is alive, right? You need a super skilled team, right? So as the chain is producing blocks, right? Not only do you need a super skilled team to develop the blockchain, but also you need a super skilled team in case you need to triage the blockchain. So when I worked at Parity, I got to see a lot of situations where parachain teams needed to triage certain issues, right? So you have to have that team that's like really skilled, that if they need to perform a runtime upgrade, right, to fix something, if they need to perform a migration in order for the chain to keep running, in order to fix any bugs that they're already on the chain, right? So you need all of that. And then lastly, you need to incentivize the community, right? If nobody's using your chain, if you have nobody using it, then you have a dead chain, right? Not DED, DEAD, right? So that's actually like, it may be the last mark there, the last bullet point, but it may be the most important, right? Because you need to keep, you're paying a lot of money to keep the chain alive. So you need to make sure that people are using it, right? Whereas a smart contract's lightweight, right? You could deploy a smart contract today. It could have business logic, and it's really cheap. Okay. So Rust has around, there was an estimate, right, around 4 million Rust developers nowadays. And there's 26,000 Web3 developers. So if you think about 26,000, that includes Solidity, right? So that's another use case when we think about ink and why would I work with ink, right? We when we're building POP network, we want to tap into this market, especially for Polkadot, right? We want to diversify the smart contract language, and we want to say we want to bring in like more developers into our ecosystem, right? So Rust is a great investment also for your personal career as a developer, because you're learning a programming language that you can take elsewhere, right? Even beyond blockchain use cases, right? So it's a great investment on your part. So in summary, POP Network, it's a generic ink smart contract platform where you can deploy ink smart contracts, and it uses DOT, right? But it's more. So what we're building is we're building this additional layer into POP Network where you can think of like all the Polkadot SDK runtime level features, right? Things that were only accessible before to parachains on a parachain level. We're taking those features one by one, and we're hoisting them up, we're elevating them to the smart contract level. So as a smart contract developer, you could use an API to access those Polkadot features, right? Whereas previously, you were limited. In order to access those features, you'd have to do an XCM call to another parachain, or you'd have to build a parachain yourself. So how we're doing that is via what we call the POP API. We're building an API that connects with like runtime level features, and you can also import this API into a smart contract and start using that in your smart contract logic. So when we talk about features, you can see some of those there. There's only a few there. We have a roadmap. So there's a lot of like, when you think of Frame, right? And all the palettes that are inside of Frame, right? The fungibles, assets palette, NFTs palette. There's a number of governance palettes, right? So we're building abstractions to those so that you can access them from the smart contract level. And when I say abstractions, like for example, cross-chain messaging, XCM. XCM is really complicated, right? Even for people who are senior XCM developers, right? It's still confusing and complicated. There's a lot that you need to know and make sure it's all working and all these things. So what we're going to do on our roadmap is we're going to take cross-chain messaging, XCM, we're going to abstract it so you don't have to be an XCM guru in order to tap into cross-chain messaging, right? And things like governance, for example. When you're building a dApp that involves a smart contract, it's often useful to have a DAO, right? So that should be something that's accessible. And you should be able to create a DAO from the sophisticated, excellent governance palettes that already exist in Substrate. So how to get started. So yeah, so let's say you're interested, right? And you're like, okay, how do I use POP CLI? How do I get started? So I'm gonna exit here for a moment and drop into the terminal. So can you see that terminal? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, okay, so I have POP already installed. All right, you can see there's a few commands there. Pop new, pop build, pop call, pop up, pop test, pop clean. Right, so let's say I want to create a new contract. Pop new contract. And you can see that the first thing that it does, it prompts me for different templates, right? So there's different templates here that you can pick from, you know, to get yourself started. There's like cross contract call, multi-sig contract. So you could start with one of these templates and play around with them. I'm going to start with Flipper. That's like the most basic hello world. And I'll call it Flipper. So, okay, so there it is, CD into Flipper. And, you know, I can do it less. There it is. There's Flipper. I could pull it up just to show you. Make it larger. So Flipper, right? I think most of you are aware of what Flipper smart contract does. It's just, it flips a value, the value that's inside of storage, right? It flips it. If it's true, it'll flip it to false. If it's false, it'll flip it to true. There's a constructor and there's a flip message. Okay, so say I want to deploy this and I can say pop up contract, and the default here, or the constructor here, it accepts a Boolean, so we'll say true. And the first thing that it'll do is it checked to see if it was already built, right? And it's like, okay, it's not built, and it has to be built in release mode in order to deploy. So what it's doing now, it's gonna build it in release mode, and it's gonna deploy it to a substrate contracts node that's already running on my machine. Like if you were to run this on your machine and it doesn't detect that, it'll automatically download a substrate contracts node and run it on port 9944, right? And then when you deploy contracts, you can deploy it there. Now, if you would like to deploy it elsewhere, right, not on substrate contracts node, all you have to do is pass in the RPC URL. So for example, when you go to our POP website, we have here the first page, like deploy contract, right? You click on that button and it takes you to this page here where you can see this one, it's connected to the POP network testnet. And so if we want to deploy to the POP network testnet, we just have to grab the RPC URL, POP network testnet, and plug it into this command here that I'm running, the pop up command, right? And it'll deploy it to that node, right? So that's one thing. The other thing that I want to share with you is we're actually going to deploy it to a local node, right? Like I said. So we're gonna deploy it using this UI here. And I have the node running. So you can see here, it's already, it's one block has been produced. I deployed a contract earlier, so it's there, right? Oh, there it is. It got deployed, block number 2. I don't know if you see that, I'll make it larger. Block number 2, it just got it produced, right? And you can see the events here, events fired off. So if we go back to the VS Code, okay, deployment complete, contract address, copy that, and just go back to the UI. I like to use this UI to manage my contracts. It's just easier to just like see it, you know, visually. And then I got to get the contract metadata. There it is. And add the contract. So there it is. The contract is there. We can see the different messages, flip and get. And right now it's set to true, right? Because that was the argument, the default argument that I passed. And if I say flip, I can say call contract. I'm using Alice. And it got flipped, so now it should be false. So if I do get, false, right? So that's that's pretty much it in a nutshell. There's other features there like POP test that you can use. As far as like app chain, I want to show you a little bit of that too. So if I say, you know, let me create a new app chain here, make it a little bit larger. POP new parachain. Same thing, like different templates. So we have some POP templates. We have an Open Zeppelin template, and we have some parity templates, right? So if I go to like POP template, we have the standard, which is like a minimal like hello world parachain template. We have the assets template if you want to play around with assets, fungibles and non-fungibles, NFTs. And we have the palette contracts, right, to run ink template. And we have an EVM template. Okay, so I'm going to start with the hello world template. And it's going to ask you for different release, like which release do you want? I'll just select 14. I'll call it my app chain. I'll call it dot, my token symbol. Instead of 12, I'll do 10. And give it some initial endowment. Yeah, that's good. And there it is. Like, look how fast that was, right? So if I CD into my app chain, so it just built a parachain, right? Just to show you, there it is, right? You have the runtime. There's the runtime, right? If you want to find like construct. Where is it? Down here somewhere. So here it is. Here's the runtime, right? So it's there. Okay, the node is there, chain spec is there, right? So everything is here. You know, it's a great starter. It's a great way to start with a parachain. There's also a network.toml file, right? So you can see this one. It's specifying for the relay chain Rococo local, and we got 2 validators. And then the parachain's going to run on with parachain ID 2000, and it's pulling in from release. So you'd have to compile this, and it'll pull it from release. You could change it to debug. I always change it to debug. So I'm not going to compile this because it's going to take forever to compile. I already have one pre-compiled that I did before the session just to show you. So this is like the same thing. It's just called my parachain. So if I do pop up parachain dash file network, I got to specify the network.toml file, and I launch it. It's going to spin up a network based on that network.toml file, right? So we should get a Rococo relay chain, and the parachain will get onboarded on there. So like, let's copy this. Put it up here. That's the relay chain. So there it is. It's producing blocks already. Right, 6 seconds. There it is. There's the third one. All right, cool. So if I go back, parachain takes a little bit to get onboarded, but it's probably already producing blocks. Let's see. That's the parachain. So it's still onboarding, right? But you can see it's there. It's going to take like maybe like a minute, and then it's going to start producing blocks. Okay, so we'll come back to this. That's the pop up command, right? So I just wanted to show you that pop up can be really useful. And you can use it to just like spin up like just a relay chain if you want, like spin up the Polkadot relay chain, right? You don't have to necessarily spin up a parachain, or you can use it for several parachains. Okay. And there it is. It's producing blocks. The parachain's producing blocks, right? So you can now use it. You can test it, right? You can test your parachain. You can interact with it and play with it. And that's it for my presentation today. As far as like community and like if you want to connect, we're a small team of engineers. Okay, so we'd love your feedback. So if you're playing around, let's say with POP CLI or POP Network, you see something, like easiest thing that you can do, like if you see a bug or an issue, just if you can just log it, report it to us, I would love that. That would help us a lot. Or if you want to contribute open source, we already had some open source contributors. We love that type of engagement, and just feedback in general, right? We're building a tool. We want to make sure that it's useful for you guys. So any feedback would be great. And we're on Twitter. So feel free to connect with me on Twitter as well. That's my Twitter handle. And yeah, that's it for today. Any questions? Any comments?
Thank you so much, Bruno. Quick question. So when we send the feedback, where do we send this? When we give a feedback?
So that's a great question. One way you can give the feedback is like on a GitHub issue, right? If it's like something technical, like, oh, I was running POP CLI and I got this error or this setup thing or whatever, right? Just submit it at GitHub issue and we can triage it from there. Whereas if it's something else, you could just drop in our Telegram channel. We're all there. All the engineers are there. So just drop a message there, and we can always like direct you from there, right? The other place is like if you go to the POP docs. So get started. And there's a section here, smart contracts or app chains. Like let's say smart contracts. There's a whole bunch of guides here, right? Like running your unit tests. And you can see on the bottom here, there's a technical support. So if you're stuck, just create a Stack Exchange question, tag it with POP, and then drop it in our Telegram channel. It's like, hey guys, like this is my issue. Here's the link. Like that's the best. If you can do that or the GitHub issue, those two, like that, then it's fantastic. Like this is Stack Exchange. I don't know if you guys are all familiar with this, but it's a great way to learn and also to tackle some issues, technical issues.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that. Let me see if Tin, do you want to add something? All right. I don't think I can. No, Tin. Bruno, can you hear Tin or it's just me?
He's muted. And now okay, he's back.
Okay. All right.
I think
Yeah,
we have a. So developing smart contracts typically involves dealing with complex concepts like blockchain consensus mechanisms, gas fees, and security consideration. Could POP CLI provide extensive guidance or tools to simplify these complexity for developers? I would say like at that point, the Polkadot SDK docs is the best resource. Like it would be ideal that one day we could get to that level where we can provide features, mechanisms within POP CLI or within some other product that we develop to make configuring a blockchain on that level like simpler, right? But you're absolutely right that there are a lot of complexities when modifying a blockchain, specifically a substrate blockchain. But in my experience, like working with substrate, I like it. I like Frame. Like I may get heat for this, but I think Frame is fun. Palette development is fun. It's enjoyable the way that the palettes are set up. It's like similar to like the Ink smart contracts where it's like, here's your storage, right? Here are your errors. Here are your dispatchable functions. So that's like another like way where it's like, start with smart contracts. And then if you want to like modify, like Shogun was saying, like modify gas fees, consensus mechanisms, then migrate into substrate. We have another question. Does POP have does POP, where it go? Oh, does POP have features to support proxy contract or smart contract security best practices? So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's there's an ink examples repo, which has a number of smart contracts that you can play around with. Okay. And I do believe they have a proxy one here somewhere. You can also use delegate, the delegate function. Yeah, you'd have to check here, but there's different contracts here that you can take a look at. And then as far as security best practices, so I'd say like use the documentation, like in terms of ink, use the documentation that's here, right? Currently ink v5 it's about to get audited by SR Labs. So ink itself is being audited. Ink v4 was already audited. So I'd say like adhere to the best practices that are shown in the documentation. I also like to look at other like smart contracts, ink smart contracts that are already in production. So there's one that I really like. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know if you guys ever saw this one, but it's by Cardinal Cryptography. They implemented PSP 22, but they did it in a very cool way. They did it in a modular approach. So this really highlights the power of ink, that you can have your errors in a different Rust file, events in a different Rust file, everything very modular, traits in a different Rust file, and then you import it in here into your smart contract. So it's all broken up, So I think this is a great smart contract to take a look at if you really want to build like a cool smart contract that adheres to, like, this one's adhering to the PSP 22 spec. I mean, the CLI, like POP upgrade, new contract, like a way to manage contracts easier. Upgrading the version of the contract, or what do you mean by that? Yeah, could you? Oh, version, like from V4 to V5. We don't have that right now. I'd say like if you're going to start smart contract development, I'd say start with V5. V5 has some newer features as well. Like V5 has the ability to do XCM, right? So not cross-chain messaging, but I'm sorry, yeah, it is cross-chain messaging. It's not cross-contract messaging. I did a workshop the other day on cross-contract messaging. Yeah, you can do that. But with V5, you can also do cross-chain messaging with XCM. Do we have any projects that are similar, like Open Zeppelin and Ink ecosystem? Open Zeppelin Ink ecosystem. So there may be, I would have to check on that. I'd have to check with the Open Zeppelin folks. I do think that, yeah, they may have something, but I'm not quite sure on that one. I'll have to check. Yeah, cross-chain, then cross-contract, then cross-chain. Yeah. But I mean, that's one of the features of Polkadot, right? What do you get with Polkadot? You get finality, right? And you get cross-chain messaging. Like that's like the big two pillars of Polkadot, right? So we definitely want to tap into that. We want to tap into that ability to cross-chain message. And you can do that with Ink. You don't need to build a parachain for that. How can I take advantage of multiple projects in POP's ecosystem to build my project? I'd say start with POP Network, building smart contracts on POP Network. That should be sufficient, and like, try to build a DApp, right? So you could use Inkathon, you could use DDOT, right? You can use for front ends type of stuff, and start there, I'd say. And as you're building it, like you already mentioned a good feature, right? So give us feedback, right? So that we can, if we know what people want, right? We can start slowly including it in our roadmap. What would be effective to include in POP CLI? Because we're building it, like right today. Like when I get off of here, I'm going to be interacting with the rest of the team, right? So we're actively building this, and we want to build a tool that's useful that lowers the barrier to Polkadot, right? That's where actually our team came from. That when we were working at Parity, we saw that like a lot of people from other ecosystems, they're like, Polkadot's a black box. Like, I don't know how to play with it. Like, it's too complicated, right? And so that's what we're trying to do with the CLI tool. That's what we're trying to do with smart contracts, lowering the barrier to entry, right? So if we can get your help on that, then we can build a better tool, a better product that people want to use, a product that brings more people into Polkadot. Yes. So there's a question, a guide to onboard, like parachain onboarding. Like, so if you go to the guide section on AppChain, there's build your parachain, and then there's running your parachain locally. And I just created one called running on Paseo locally, right? Paseo is the new community run Polkadot relay chain testnet. And actually, I'm working this week on a guide to onboard a parachain to the Paseo testnet that's live. So that'll be coming in here. It'll go probably somewhere around here. You'll see it updated later this week or beginning next week. So there's also, from a smart contract perspective of onboarding onto POP network, there's this guide here, deploy on POP testnet, right? So if you want to deploy a smart contract on a POP network, which is a parachain, which uses DOT, the guide will walk you through. You got to fund your DOT tokens on the relay chain, right? You got to use the faucet to get some DOT tokens, and then you got to bridge those tokens to POP network, and then you deploy it. You can use Alice. Okay, so that's all there.
Right. I guess we can conclude with that with the guide on onboarding on POP network. Right. Thank you so much, Bruno, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, looking forward to see some smart contracts and engaging with you all online. Thank you.
Yeah. I've been actually I know POP already. I've been hearing POP because of the decoded Sub-Zero, but it's only now that I truly understand what is public play on Polkadot, and it really means like what you said, it's lowering the barrier, um barrier entry to Polkadot tech, right? So in OpenGrid, we're also doing that. We're trying to onboard as much devs in Southeast Asia as much as possible, but the impression that we're always getting is that it's hard to build on Polkadot, or it's very complicated. So with me, like with this experience now, I guess we will always have POP, with the workshops and the meetup gatherings, because we promote, like convenience and easy to build on Polkadot. I guess POP would be perfect for that. Thank you so much. This is very helpful, even for me, like a non-tech person.
I was in Ho Chi Minh, right, in a blockchain meetup, small group, right, and it was like a bunch of Ethereum developers and Solana,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I got the feedback. They're like, "Oh, Polkadot's really cool, but it's kind of like a black box, and I don't know how to play with it, but I do. How do I play with it, right?" So hopefully, like this is the beginning, guys. Like hopefully, like what we're building here is an on ramp to Polkadot, right?
Right. Yeah, so keep in touch also, for everyone, to conclude this officially. Thank you so much to you, Bruno, for sharing this very, very insightful workshop. And thank you to everyone who joined us tonight and your morning. It's been very good, and for me it's very helpful personally. A lot of key takeaways and very inspiring to build. Hopefully we can do more with our community to start building on Polkadot through POP. And so before we close, just a few quick reminders that if you miss any part of the workshop and you want to revisit the presentation, there will be a recording in our X account at OpenGuild And we also encourage you to connect with Bruno and with the POP team. And Bruno shared earlier the QR code, but you can also follow them on X. We will post it in our X account later on. And also, please take a moment to fill out our feedback. We will share to you, or we will reach out to everyone to give us more feedback with this workshop session to we can make it better next time. And yeah, so we hope you guys enjoyed today's session and looking forward to have everyone again. That's it. Do you have any last words, Bruno, for tonight?
Looking forward to interacting with you guys online. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
I'll see you guys later. Maybe also Sub-Zero, right? Sub-Zero is going to be coming up, I believe, in November. It's a Polkadot developer conference, and I believe
Yes.
it's going to be in Bangkok. So I hope to see you all there. I'll
Right. Yeah. See you there, Bruno. Thank you so much,
be there. All right.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.